Picture this. A game so controversial that politicians demanded it be banned. A game so violent that parents feared for their children's minds. A game so successful that it shattered every sales record in entertainment history. And a game so influential that it redefined what video games could be, what stories they could tell, and what worlds they could create. This is the story of Grand Theft Auto. For over 25 years, Grand Theft Auto has been more than just a video game franchise. It has been a cultural lightning rod, a technological marvel, and a mirror held up to modern society. It has sparked debates in parliaments and courtrooms. It has been blamed for real-world violence and defended as artistic expression. It has made billions of dollars while being denounced by moral guardians. And through it all, it has pushed the boundaries of interactive entertainment further than almost any other series in gaming history. From its humble beginnings as a quirky top-down crime simulator to its evolution into the most detailed, ambitious open worlds ever created, Grand Theft Auto has always dared to be different. It has always challenged conventions. It has always refused to play it safe. And in doing so, it has become one of the most important franchises in the history of video games. Tonight, we are going to take a deep, relaxing journey through the complete history of Grand Theft Auto. We will explore how a small Scottish studio created something that would change gaming forever. We will examine the controversies that made headlines around the world. We will dissect the design philosophy that makes these virtual cities feel so alive. And we will discover why Grand Theft Auto continues to captivate millions of players more than 2 decades after it first let us steal a car and drive wherever we wanted. Hello there, and welcome to the Sleepy Computer Scientist. Tonight, we are diving into one of the most fascinating stories in gaming history. A story of innovation and controversy, of ambition and backlash, of technical achievement and moral panic. The story of Grand Theft Auto is the story of how video games grew up, for better or worse, and how one franchise dared to push boundaries that others feared to approach. If you enjoy these quiet explorations of computing and gaming history, I invite you to like and subscribe, or share a thought down in the comments. It helps others find their way here too, one sleepy soul at a time. But for now, all you need to do is rest, settle in, and allow yourself to drift through this remarkable journey. Let your breathing slow. Let your mind wander through the neon-lit streets and sun-soaked highways of the Grand Theft Auto universe. Let's begin. The story of Grand Theft Auto begins not in the glamorous offices of a major publisher, not in the tech corridors of Silicon Valley, but in the modest city of Dundee, Scotland. In the mid-1990s, a small development studio called DMA Design was working on various projects, having already achieved some success with the puzzle game Lemmings. The studio was creative, ambitious, and unafraid to experiment. And in 1995, they began working on a project that would change everything. The original concept for Grand Theft Auto was quite different from what eventually emerged. Early prototypes featured a cops and robbers theme, but the game was meant to be fairly straightforward. A mission-based driving game where players would complete objectives in an open city environment. But during development, something unexpected happened. A bug in the police AI caused cop cars to relentlessly pursue the player with aggressive, almost unstoppable determination. Instead of fixing the bug immediately, the developers played with it. They discovered that being chased by overly aggressive police was actually fun, thrilling, chaotic. It added an element of excitement that the game had been missing. This accident became a defining feature. The developers leaned into it. They realized they were creating something different from the typical racing or action games of the era. They were building a game about crime, about chaos, about freedom. A game where the player was not the hero, but the criminal. Where breaking the law was not a failure state, but the entire point. Grand Theft Auto was released in 1997 for MS-DOS and Windows, with later ports to PlayStation and Game Boy Color. The game featured a top-down, two-dimensional perspective, allowing players to see their character and vehicle from above as they navigated a sprawling urban environment. The graphics were simple, almost crude by modern standards, but the game's ambition was clear. It offered 3 fictional cities loosely based on real locations: Liberty City, inspired by New York, Vice City, inspired by Miami, and San Andreas, inspired by San Francisco. Each city was a playground, a sandbox where players could accept missions from criminal contacts, steal cars, evade police, and cause mayhem. The gameplay was revolutionary for its time. Unlike most games that guided players through linear levels or restricted environments, Grand Theft Auto gave players freedom. Not absolute freedom, the technology and design of the era imposed limits, but freedom nonetheless. Players could ignore missions and simply explore. They could steal any vehicle they saw on the street. They could run over pedestrians, something that would soon become a major point of controversy. They could engage in gunfights with police. The game did not punish exploration or experimentation, it rewarded it. The mission structure was straightforward. Players would find payphones scattered throughout the city and receive objectives from various criminal organizations. Missions range from simple car theft to assassination, from drug running to complex heists. Completing missions earned money, which could be used to purchase weapons and items. But the beauty of the original Grand Theft Auto was that missions were optional. Players could choose their own path through the game. They could focus on missions or simply exist in the world, creating their own stories and experiences. The game's presentation was distinctive. The radio stations, which would become iconic in later entries, were present even in the first game. Players could switch between different stations, each playing a specific genre of music. This not only added atmosphere, it made the world feel more real, more lived in. The music was not just a soundtrack imposed by the developers, it was diegetic, part of the world itself. The cities felt like places with their own culture and character. The tone of Grand Theft Auto was anarchic and darkly humorous. The game did not take itself too seriously. It was a parody of crime films and American urban culture. Pedestrians shouted absurd dialogue. Mission briefings were laced with over-the-top criminal bravado. The game knew it was a game, and it revelled in its own absurdity. This satirical edge would become a defining characteristic of the entire franchise. Grand Theft Auto was not an immediate blockbuster. Initial reviews were mixed. Some critics praised its freedom and originality, while others criticized its violence and crude presentation. But word of mouth spread. Players discovered that GTA offered something genuinely different. It was a game that let you be bad without guilt, a game that did not lecture or moralize, and as sales grew, so did controversy. The media quickly seized on Grand Theft Auto's content. News reports highlighted the violence, the ability to kill pedestrians, the criminal themes. Parent groups and moral advocates expressed outrage. Some retailers refused to stock the game. But here is the paradox. The controversy helped. Every news story, every moral panic, every outraged editorial served as free advertising. Young gamers, drawn by the forbidden allure of a game adults were trying to ban, sorted out. Grand Theft Auto became notorious, and notoriety sold copies. In 1999, DMA Design released 2 expansion packs set in London: Grand Theft Auto, London 1969 and Grand Theft Auto, London 1961. These expansions moved the action from fictional American cities to a stylized version of London during the swinging 60s. The core gameplay remained the same, but the setting added new flavour. British cars, British slang, British humour. The radio stations played music from the era, immersing players in a specific time and place. These expansions demonstrated that the GTA formula could work in different contexts, that the concept was flexible enough to support various settings and styles. Grand Theft Auto 2 followed in 1999. Set in a dystopian future rather than a contemporary or historical setting, GTA 2 refined the original's mechanics and introduced a reputation system. Players could work for different gangs, and their actions would affect their standing with each faction. Helping one gang might make another hostile. This added a layer of strategic thinking to the chaos. GTA 2 also featured improved graphics, better AI, and more varied missions. While it did not revolutionize the formula, it showed that DMA Design was committed to evolving the series. By the end of the 1990s, Grand Theft Auto had established itself as a successful, if controversial, franchise. But the games were still relatively niche. They had a dedicated following, but they had not yet broken through to mainstream success. The top-down perspective, while functional, limited the sense of immersion. The worlds, though open and explorable, felt somewhat abstract. The technology of the time could only do so much. Everything was about to change. As the new millennium dawned, DMA Design, now renamed Rockstar North and owned by Rockstar Games, began work on the next entry in the series. And this time, they were aiming for something that had never been done before. They were going to build an entire city in 3 dimensions. They were going to let players step into the shoes of a criminal and see the world through their eyes. They were going to create an experience so immersive, so detailed, so ambitious, that would redefine what open-world games could be. In October 2001, Rockstar North released Grand Theft Auto 3 for the PlayStation 2, and nothing in gaming was ever quite the same again. Grand Theft Auto 3 was not just an evolution of the series, it was a revolution. Moving from the top-down perspective of the first 2 games to a fully 3-dimensional third-person viewpoint transformed the experience entirely. For the first time, players did not look down at their character from above. They walked behind them, experiencing the city at eye level. They could see skyscrapers rising above them, see pedestrians walking past on the sidewalk, see cars speeding down the street. The shift to 3D was not just a technical upgrade. It was a fundamental change in how the game felt, how it immersed players in its world. Liberty City, the game's setting, was a revelation. Loosely based on New York City, Liberty City was divided into 3 main islands: Portland, a grimy industrial area filled with docks and warehouses; Staunton Island, a wealthier district with skyscrapers and businesses; and Shoreside Vale, a suburban and rural area. Each island had its own distinct character, its own atmosphere. And for the first time in gaming, these areas felt like a real, living city. The detail was astonishing for 2001. Pedestrians walked the streets, going about their daily lives. Some talked on cell phones, some hurried along with purpose, others strolled leisurely. Traffic flowed according to traffic laws mostly. Cars stopped at red lights. They honked when frustrated. They swerved to avoid collisions. The city had weather. Rain fell, slicking the streets and reducing visibility. Day turned to night, and night turned to day, casting the city in a different moods. The sun would rise over the skyline, painting the buildings in warm light. At night, neon signs glowed and streetlights flickered. This was not a static backdrop. This was a simulation, simplified but effective, of urban life. And for players in 2001, it was breathtaking. Previous open-world games had offered space to explore, but few had offered a world that felt so alive, so reactive, so full of emergent moments. You could watch a pedestrian get into a car and drive away. You could follow an NPC as they went about their routine. You could cause a traffic jam and watch as frustrated drivers honked and tried to navigate around it. The city was a stage, and every element on that stage had its own behaviour, its own purpose. The game's story was equally groundbreaking. Grand Theft Auto 3 introduced a cinematic approach to storytelling in open-world games. The protagonist, Claude, was a silent character, but the world around him was anything but silent. The game featured professional voice acting, a rarity in games at the time, and especially rare in open-world titles. The cast included notable actors like Michael Madsen, Joe Pantoliano, and Frank Vincent. These were not amateur performances or stilted reads. These were genuine, compelling performances that gave the characters depth and personality. The story itself was dark and violent, befitting the crime genre the game embraced. Claude, betrayed by his girlfriend Catalina during a bank robbery, is left for dead and imprisoned. After a dramatic escape during a prison transport, Claude finds himself stranded in Liberty City with nothing. He begins working for the Leone crime family, gradually rising through the criminal underworld. Along the way, he encounters a colourful cast of criminals, each with their own agendas and personalities. There is Joey Leone, the Don's son, who tasks Claude with enforcing the family's interests. There is Asker Kaysen, leader of the Yakuza, who becomes an ally and later an employer. There is Donald Love, a corrupt businessman with deeply unsettling tastes. The missions in GTA 3 were varied and inventive. Some were straightforward: steal a car, deliver a package, kill a target. But others were surprisingly complex. One mission required players to carefully tail a target without being detected. Another involved racing against the clock to defuse bombs planted across the city. Yet another tasked players with rescuing someone from a heavily guarded compound. The variety kept the gameplay fresh, and the escalating stakes gave the story momentum. But what truly set Grand Theft Auto 3 apart was its embrace of player freedom. The main story was compelling, but it was entirely optional. Players could ignore missions and simply exist in Liberty City. They could steal cars and cruise around listening to the radio stations. And oh, those radio stations! Each station featured a carefully curated playlist of licensed music, spanning genres from rock to hip-hop, from classical to talk radio. The radio did more than provide a soundtrack. It built atmosphere. It gave Liberty City culture. The talk radio stations in particular were brilliantly satirical, mocking everything from politics to advertising to American consumerism. The world of GTA 3 was filled with secrets and hidden content. Stunt jumps, hidden packages, side missions like taxi driving, ambulance rescue, vigilante cop work, and fire truck firefighting. These activities rewarded exploration and experimentation. They gave players reasons to engage with the world beyond the main story. And because the city was so dense and detailed, exploration never felt empty. There was always something to see, something to discover, something happening just around the corner. Technically, GTA 3 was a marvel. The game ran on the PlayStation 2, a console that was powerful for its time but still limited by today's standards. Yet Rockstar North managed to create a seamless open world with no loading screens between areas, only when entering interiors or transitioning between islands. The draw distance was impressive. The city felt expansive, far larger than it actually was. The physics, while not realistic by modern standards, were satisfyingly chaotic. Cars handled with arcade-style responsiveness. Crashes sent vehicles spinning and smoking. Explosions sent debris flying. The chaos was part of the appeal. Grand Theft Auto 3 was also incredibly violent. Players could run over pedestrians. They could shoot innocent bystanders. They could beat people to death with a baseball bat. They could blow up cars with people inside. The game did not shy away from its criminal themes. It embraced them, and predictably this led to controversy. News outlets ran stories about the game's violence. Politicians called for bans. Parent groups organized protests. The game was blamed for influencing real-world crime, a claim that has never been substantiated by credible research, but persists nonetheless. Yet despite, or perhaps because of, the controversy, Grand Theft Auto 3 was a massive commercial success. It sold over 14.5 million copies, becoming one of the best-selling games of the PlayStation 2 era. Critics praised its ambition, its innovation, its world design. It won numerous awards, and most importantly, it influenced an entire generation of game developers. After GTA 3, open-world games exploded in popularity. Developers realized that players craved freedom, exploration, immersive worlds. GTA 3 proved it was possible to create a living, breathing city. It set a new standard. Grand Theft Auto 3 was more than a commercial success. It was a cultural phenomenon. It entered the mainstream consciousness in a way few games had before. People who did not play games knew about GTA. It was referenced in TV shows, movies, music. It became part of the zeitgeist. And for Rockstar Games, it was just the beginning. They had proven they could create a compelling 3D open-world crime game. Now, they were going to refine it. They were going to take everything they learned from GTA 3 and push even further. The foundation was laid. The template was established, and Rockstar was ready to build on it. Just over a year after the release of Grand Theft Auto 3, in October 2002, Rockstar Games released Grand Theft Auto: Vice City. If GTA 3 was a gritty, rain-soaked crime drama set in a fictionalized New York, Vice City was a neon-drenched, sun-soaked celebration of 1980s excess. It was Miami Vice meets Scarface, filtered through Rockstar's satirical lens. Vice City was set in 1986, and every element of the game was designed to evoke that era. The city itself, a fictional version of Miami, was bathed in pastel colors. Art Deco buildings lined Ocean Beach. Palm trees swayed in the breeze. Convertibles cruised down palm-lined boulevards. The atmosphere was thick with nostalgia for a decade defined by excess, consumerism, and a particular brand of glamorous sleaze. Vice City was not just a setting, it was a time capsule, a loving recreation of an era that existed as much in cultural memory as in reality. The city was smaller than Liberty City in terms of raw landmass, but it felt more cohesive, more focused. It was divided into two main islands connected by bridges. The eastern island featured the downtown area, with its towering hotels and business district, as well as Little Havana and Little Haiti, neighborhoods that reflected the city's diverse immigrant population. The western island was home to Vice Beach, Starfish Island, and Prawn Island, areas that exuded wealth and glamour. The Everglades, a swampy expanse on the outskirts, provided a stark contrast to the urban luxury elsewhere. Every inch of Vice City was designed to immerse players in the 1980s. The fashion was unmistakable. Pastel suits, Hawaiian shirts, aviator sunglasses, shoulder pads. The architecture was distinctly Art Deco and postmodern. The advertisements plastered on billboards and posters referenced 80s consumer culture, from home video systems to aerobics tapes. Even the vehicles were period appropriate, from boxy sedans to sleek sports cars, each one designed to evoke a specific moment in automotive history. But the true genius of Vice City's atmosphere lay in its soundtrack. Grand Theft Auto 3 had featured an impressive array of radio stations, but Vice City took this concept to an entirely new level. The game included 9 radio stations, each dedicated to a specific genre popular in the 1980s. Flash FM played pop hits from artists like Michael Jackson, Hall & Oates, and Wang Chung. Emotion 98.3 featured power ballads and soft rock from Foreigner, REO Speedwagon, and Kate Bush. V-Rock delivered hard rock and heavy metal from Iron Maiden, Judas Priest, and Ozzy Osbourne. Wave 103 offered new wave and electronic music from Blondie, Gary Newman, and A Flock of Seagulls. Fever 105 brought Latin and dance music. Wildstyle was dedicated to hip-hop. And there were more, each station a carefully curated playlist that transported players back to 1986. The radio stations did more than provide background music. They defined the mood of the game. Cruising down Ocean Drive with Iran by A Flock of Seagulls playing on Wave 103, the sun setting over the ocean, the city glowing in pink and orange light, this was not just gameplay. This was an experience, an aesthetic journey. The music was licensed, expensive to secure, and absolutely essential to the game's identity. Rockstar understood that music is memory, that certain songs can instantly transport listeners to a specific time and place. Vice City's soundtrack was a masterclass in using music to build atmosphere. For the first time in the series, the protagonist was not a silent character. Tommy Vercetti, voiced by Ray Liotta, was a fully realized character with personality, motivations, and an arc. Tommy was a member of the Forelli crime family in Liberty City, recently released from prison after serving 15 years for a hit gone wrong. He is sent to Vice City to oversee a drug deal for the Forellis, but the deal is ambushed. The drugs and the money are stolen, and Tommy barely escapes with his life. Now, he is stranded in Vice City with nothing, tasked with recovering the lost goods and finding out who set him up. From this starting point, Tommy begins building his own criminal empire. He starts small, doing jobs for various local criminals. A corrupt lawyer named Ken Rosenberg, a music producer named Kent Paul, a Cuban gang leader named Humberto Robina. Gradually, Tommy gains power and respect. He acquires businesses, from taxi companies to strip clubs to print shops. He takes over the drug trade. He clashes with rival gangs, including the Haitian gang led by Auntie Poulet and the biker gang led by Mitch Baker. And eventually he confronts Sonny Forelli, his former boss, asserting his independence and cementing his status as Vice City's new kingpin. Tommy Vercetti was a departure from Claude's silent protagonist. He was charismatic, ruthless, and compelling. Ray Liotta's performance brought depth to the character, making Tommy more than just a criminal avatar. He had ambition, he had pride, he had rage, and players could understand his motivations even if they did not condone his actions. This marked an important evolution for the series. Grand Theft Auto was no longer just about causing chaos. It was about telling stories, about creating characters players could invest in. The supporting cast was equally memorable. Ken Rosenberg, voiced by William Fichtner, was a neurotic lawyer constantly on the edge of a breakdown. Lance Vance, voiced by Miami Vice star Philip Michael Thomas, was Tommy's partner, a hothead seeking revenge for his brother's death. Colonel Cortez, an exiled South American military officer, provided early missions and context. And then there was Ricardo Diaz, voiced by Luis Guzman, a paranoid drug lord who becomes both an employer and an obstacle. Each character was distinct, brought to life by strong voice acting and sharp writing. The missions in Vice City were varied and often outrageous. One mission required players to protect a band during a concert from assassins, sniping threats from a nearby rooftop. Another involved a high-speed chase through the city, weaving through traffic while being pursued by law enforcement. A particularly memorable mission, Demolition Man, tasked players with controlling a remote-controlled helicopter to plant bombs in a building while fending off construction workers. It was notoriously difficult but emblematic of the game's willingness to experiment with different gameplay styles. Vice City also expanded on the property and business ownership introduced in earlier games. Tommy could purchase various properties around the city, each offering unique missions and income streams. The Malibu Club, a nightclub, had its own storyline involving setting up a bank heist. The Print Works, a counterfeit money operation, unlocked missions related to printing fake cash. The Pole Position Club, the Interglobal Film Studio, Kaufman Cabs, each property added new content and incentives to explore and invest in the world. Owning businesses made Tommy feel like more than just a hired gun. He was building an empire, brick by brick, mission by mission. The game's humour was sharp and satirical. Vice City mocked 1980s culture relentlessly. The commercials on the radio stations parodied everything from self-help tapes to political campaigns to cheesy action movies. The fictional brands in the game, like Pogo the Monkey and Pastor Richard's religious scams, were absurd exaggerations of real-world counterparts. The game never took itself too seriously. Even in its darkest moments, there was a sense of playful irreverence. Rockstar was not glorifying crime. They were satirizing American culture, holding up a funhouse mirror to excess and hypocrisy. Visually, Vice City was a step up from GTA 3. The character models were more detailed. The lighting was more atmospheric. The city was more colourful, more vibrant. The technology was the same, still running on the PlayStation 2, but Rockstar had learned how to push the hardware further. The game felt more polished, more refined. And the setting, bathed in perpetual sunshine and neon glow, gave the game a distinct visual identity that set it apart from its predecessor's gloomy urban sprawl. Grand Theft Auto, Vice City was another massive success, selling over 17.5 million copies. Critics praised its setting, its soundtrack, its storytelling, and its gameplay refinements. Players loved the vibrant world and the charismatic protagonist, and once again, the game sparked controversy. The violence, the drug references, the portrayal of various ethnic groups all became focal points for critics. Some groups accused the game of promoting negative stereotypes, particularly against Haitians and Cubans. Rockstar faced lawsuits and calls for the game to be altered or banned. In some versions, dialogue was changed to reduce offence, though the core content remained. But controversy, as always, fueled interest. Vice City became a cultural touchstone. It demonstrated that Rockstar could not only create compelling open worlds, but also use those worlds to tell engaging stories set in richly realised settings. Vice City was not just a game. It was an experience, a journey into a neon-soaked fantasy of the 1980s, a world where ambition and violence collided in a sun-drenched paradise built on crime and excess. It proved that Grand Theft Auto could be more than one thing, that each game could have its own identity while staying true to the core formula, and Rockstar was just getting started. In October 2004, 2 years after Vice City, Rockstar North released Grand Theft Auto San Andreas. If Vice City was a focused, stylized homage to a specific time and place, San Andreas was pure ambition. It was a game that seemed to want to do everything, to be everything, to include everything, and remarkably it succeeded. San Andreas was set in 1992, in the fictional state of San Andreas. Not a single city, but an entire state, comprising 3 major cities and vast expanses of countryside, desert and forest in between. The scale was unprecedented for the time. Los Santos, a fictionalized version of Los Angeles, was the starting location, a sprawling metropolis of palm trees, freeways and urban decay. San Fierro, based on San Francisco, was hilly and foggy, with steep streets and iconic landmarks. Las Venturas, modelled after Las Vegas, was a desert oasis of casinos, neon lights, and excess. And connecting these cities were miles of highway, small towns, rural farms, military bases, forests, mountains, and deserts. The world of San Andreas was enormous. It dwarfed previous GTA games, and it was not just large, it was diverse. Each city had its own culture, its own aesthetic, its own identity. Los Santos felt distinctly West Coast urban, with gang culture, hip-hop, and beach life. San Fierro had a counterculture vibe, with graffiti, alternative music, and progressive politics. Las Venturas was all glitz and glamour, a playground for gamblers and dreamers. The countryside offered a different pace, quieter and more open, dotted with small towns that felt worlds away from the urban chaos. The protagonist, Carl C.J. Johnson, returned to Los Santos after 5 years away. He had left to escape the gang violence that had consumed his neighbourhood, but now he is drawn back by the murder of his mother. Upon arriving, CJ is immediately confronted by corrupt police officers Tenpenny and Pulaski, who frame him for a murder and blackmail him into working for them. Dropped in the hostile territory of a rival gang, CJ reunites with his old friends and family. His brother Sweet, his childhood friends Big Smoke and Ryder, and his sister Kendall. CJ is pulled back into the gang life he tried to leave behind. The life of the Grove Street families, a gang struggling to survive in a city dominated by rival gangs and corruption. CJ's journey took players across the entire state. The early missions focused on rebuilding Grove Street's power in Los Santos, taking back territory from rival gangs, and avenging personal losses. As the story progressed, CJ's world expanded. He became involved in a heist in a small country town. He worked with a hippie cult in San Fierro. He partnered with a Chinese-American street racer and her underground garage. He became a mob enforcer in Las Venturas. He worked on a film set. He infiltrated a government facility. He flew planes, drove trains, piloted boats. The story was sprawling, almost to the point of incoherence, but it captured a sense of adventure and scope unmatched by previous games. What truly set San Andreas apart was its RPG-like depth. For the first time in the series, players could customize CJ in extensive ways. He could get haircuts at barbershops. He could buy clothing at dozens of shops, mixing and matching styles to create unique looks. He could get tattoos. He could eat at restaurants, and eating affected CJ's physical appearance. Eat too much, and CJ would become overweight, which affected his stamina and how others perceived him. Work out at the gym, and CJ would build muscle, increasing his strength and combat effectiveness. Neglect his appearance, and CJ would become thin and weak. This customization extended to CJ's abilities. Every action CJ performed contributed to skill progression. Driving a car improved driving skill, which reduced the chance of losing control. Using weapons improved weapon skills, increasing accuracy and reload speed. Even cycling and swimming had skill levels. The more CJ swam, the longer he could hold his breath underwater. The more he cycled, the faster he could pedal. These mechanics added depth and a sense of progression beyond the story missions. Players felt like they were developing CJ as a character, shaping him through their actions. San Andreas introduced gang warfare mechanics. In Los Santos, CJ could recruit gang members to follow him. He could take territory from rival gangs by engaging in turf wars, shooting-based confrontations where CJ and his crew fought to control city blocks. Successfully capturing territory expanded Grove Street's influence and provided income. But territories could also be lost if not defended. This added a strategic layer to the game, encouraging players to maintain and expand their empire. The game also featured a host of side activities and mini-games. CJ could date girlfriends, each with her own preferences and rewards. He could play basketball. He could gamble in Las Venturas casinos, playing blackjack, poker, roulette, and slot machines. He could enter lowrider competitions, bouncing hydraulics to the beat of music. He could participate in street races. He could go to a gym and use workout equipment. He could play arcade games in bars and diners. He could take dancing lessons. The sheer variety of content was staggering. San Andreas felt less like a single game and more like a collection of games wrapped in an open-world package. The mission design was ambitious and varied. One mission had CJ breaking into a mansion to steal a fortune. Another required him to pilot a jetpack through a military compound. Yet another involved stealing a combine harvester and chasing down rival gang members in a rural setting. A particularly memorable mission, Wrong Side of the Tracks, had CJ riding on a dirt bike while Big Smoke attempted to shoot rival gang members on a moving train. Another, Freefall, involved chasing a plane in another plane, then boarding it mid-air in a high-stakes action sequence straight out of a Hollywood blockbuster. The story touched on themes rarely explored in games of that era. It dealt with systemic corruption, with police officers who were more criminal than the criminals they pursued. It explored gang culture, not glorifying it, but showing its destructive cycle and the way it trapped young people in poverty and violence. It examined loyalty and betrayal, family and ambition. And while the game's humour was often crude and satirical, the emotional beats, particularly CJ's relationship with his brother Sweet, and his grief over his mother's death, gave the story genuine weight. Voice acting in San Andreas was exceptional. CJ was voiced by young Melee, who brought authenticity and depth to the character. Samuel L. Jackson voiced Officer Tenpenny, the corrupt cop who served as one of the game's primary antagonists. James Woods appeared as a government agent. Peter Fonda played a hippie cult leader. The cast was packed with talent, and the performances elevated the storytelling significantly. The soundtrack, once again, was a defining feature. San Andreas featured 11 radio stations, spanning genres from gangster rap to classic rock, from country to electronic. The hip-hop station, Radio Los Santos, featured tracks from NWA, Tupac, and Cypress Hill, perfectly capturing the West Coast rap scene of the early 1990s. KDST played classic rock from Lynyrd Skynyrd, Creedence Clearwater Revival, and Tom Petty. The country station played Willie Nelson and Hank Williams. The soundtrack was a love letter to music of the era, and it made cruising through San Andreas an auditory delight. But San Andreas is perhaps best remembered for the controversy it sparked, particularly the hot coffee scandal. Hidden within the game's code was a minigame featuring explicit sexual content. This content was not accessible through normal gameplay. It required modification of the game files on PC or use of cheat devices on consoles. However, when modders discovered and unlocked this content in 2005, it ignited a firestorm. Media outlets ran sensational stories. Politicians condemned Rockstar. The SRB re-rated the game from mature to adults only, which effectively removed it from major retailers. Rockstar eventually released a new version of the game with the content permanently removed, and the rating was restored to mature. The hot coffee controversy was a watershed moment for the gaming industry. It raised questions about hidden content, about developer responsibility, about the nature of ratings and regulation. It also demonstrated the enduring moral panic surrounding video game content. The content in question was inaccessible without deliberate modification, yet the outrage was immense. Critics argued that Rockstar had intentionally included inappropriate content and hidden it. Rockstar argued that the content was never meant to be seen, and that modding the game was the player's choice. The debate raged, lawsuits were filed, and the incident cast a long shadow over the franchise. Yet despite the controversy, or perhaps in part because of it, San Andreas became the best-selling PlayStation 2 game of all time, moving over 27 million copies. Critics lauded its ambition, its depth, its world design. Players spent hundreds of hours exploring every corner of San Andreas, completing missions, customizing CJ, and simply existing in the world. The game's cultural impact was enormous. It became a reference point not just for gamers but for popular culture at large. Its depiction of gang culture, while controversial, was seen by some as authentic and respectful, by others as exploitative and stereotypical. San Andreas pushed the PlayStation 2 to its absolute limits. The game suffered from occasional technical issues, pop-in, frame rate drops, glitches. But these problems were forgiven because of the sheer scope of what Rockstar had achieved. They had built an entire state, filled it with content, and made it all work on hardware that was never designed for such ambition. San Andreas was a technical miracle and a design triumph. It also marked the end of an era. San Andreas was the final GTA game built for the PlayStation 2. The next generation of consoles was on the horizon, and Rockstar would use that new technology to push even further, to refine their formula, to create worlds even more detailed and immersive. But San Andreas would always hold a special place in the hearts of players who experienced its sprawling, chaotic, ambitious vision of virtual California. Grand Theft Auto has always been controversial. From the very first game, the series has attracted criticism, condemnation, and calls for censorship. Understanding this controversy is essential to understanding the franchise's place in gaming history and popular culture. The controversy is not incidental to GTA's success. In many ways, it has been fundamental to it. The core criticism leveled at Grand Theft Auto has remained consistent across decades. The games are too violent, they glorify crime, and they corrupt young people. The ability to kill pedestrians, to steal cars, to engage in criminal activities has been seen by critics as morally corrosive. The argument goes that by allowing players to commit virtual crimes without consequence, the games normalize antisocial behavior and desensitize players to violence. This concern intensified with the move to 3D graphics. When violence was depicted from a top-down, abstract perspective in the original games, it was easier to dismiss as cartoonish. But when players could see pedestrians react to being struck by a car, when they could watch their character beat someone with realistic animations, the violence felt more visceral, more immediate. Critics argued that this realism crossed a line, that it transformed the game from harmless fantasy into something genuinely harmful. The most vocal critic of the Grand Theft Auto series was attorney Jack Thompson. Throughout the 2000s, Thompson waged a personal crusade against violent video games, with GTA as his primary target. He filed lawsuits against Rockstar and Take-Two Interactive, the series publisher. He sent letters to retailers demanding they stop selling the games to minors. He appeared on television and radio programs, arguing that video games like GTA train children to kill. He compared the games to murder simulators, claiming they taught players how to commit violent acts and conditioned them to enjoy doing so. Thompson's arguments were rarely supported by credible scientific evidence. Numerous studies have examined the relationship between video game violence and real-world aggression, and the consensus among researchers is that there is no strong causal link. While some studies suggest short-term increases in aggressive thoughts or feelings after playing violent games, there is no evidence that these games cause long-term behavioral changes or real-world violence. The American Psychological Association and other professional organizations have repeatedly stated that the relationship is complex and not well understood, and that blaming video games for societal violence is an oversimplification. Yet Thompson and others persisted. They pointed to specific crimes and claimed video games were to blame. When a teenager committed a violent act, investigators would sometimes find that the teenager played Grand Theft Auto, and this would be presented as evidence of causation. The media would run stories with headlines like, "Did Grand Theft Auto cause this murder?" The reality, of course, was that millions of people played GTA without committing any crimes, but this statistical context was often ignored in favor of sensational narratives. Politicians, sensing an opportunity to appear tough on a controversial issue, joined the chorus. In the United States, Senator Hillary Clinton introduced legislation in 2005 to criminalize the sale of violent games to minors. The legislation ultimately failed, as did similar efforts in other states, often being struck down as unconstitutional violations of free speech. Courts repeatedly ruled that video games, like films and books, are protected forms of expression under the First Amendment. But the political pressure continued. Internationally, the controversy played out in different ways. In some countries, GTA games were banned outright or heavily censored. Australia, with its strict classification system, initially refused classification for several GTA titles, effectively banning them until modified versions were released. Germany required significant changes, removing blood and altering certain content to comply with local laws. Brazil, Thailand, and other nations imposed bans or restrictions at various times. The series became a global lightning rod for debates about media, morality, and the role of government in regulating entertainment. Rockstar's response to the controversy was multifaceted. Publicly, they defended their games as satirical art, protected speech, and entertainment for adults. They pointed out that GTA games were rated mature, meaning they were intended for players aged 17 and older. They argued that parents, not governments, should decide what content was appropriate for their children. Rockstar also emphasized the satirical nature of the games, arguing that GTA was social commentary, not endorsement of crime. But privately, and perhaps strategically, Rockstar understood that controversy sold games. Every news story, every political condemnation, every parent group protest served as free advertising. Young players, drawn by the forbidden allure of a game that adults were trying to ban, sought out GTA. The controversy created a mystique, a sense that GTA was dangerous, transgressive, rebellious, and for a certain demographic that was incredibly appealing. Rockstar did not actively court controversy, but they certainly did not shy away from it. They leaned into the mature themes, the violence, the satire. They made games that were provocative by design. Beyond the violence, GTA sparked debates about representation and stereotypes. Vice City was criticized for its portrayal of Haitians and Cubans, with some advocacy groups arguing that the game reinforced negative stereotypes. San Andreas faced scrutiny over its depiction of African American gang culture, with critics divided on whether it was authentic or exploitative. Later games would face similar accusations regarding the portrayal of various ethnic, cultural, and social groups. Rockstar's defense was consistent. The games were satires that mocked everyone and everything. No one was spared. American culture, consumerism, politics, media, all were targets of GTA's razor-sharp humour. But intent and impact are not always aligned, and debates about whether the satire succeeded or simply perpetuated harmful stereotypes continue. The hot coffee scandal, as mentioned earlier, was perhaps the most damaging controversy. It resulted in lawsuits, regulatory investigations, and a re-rating of San Andreas. Take-Two Interactive, Rockstar's parent company, faced shareholder lawsuits claiming the company had misled investors about the game's content. The Federal Trade Commission investigated whether Rockstar had intentionally deceived the ESRB. The scandal cost the company millions in settlements and lost sales. It also led to increased scrutiny of game content and more stringent review processes within the industry. Yet through all of this, Grand Theft Auto endured. The franchise did not collapse under the weight of controversy. Instead, it grew. Each new installment broke sales records. The cultural footprint expanded. GTA became a household name, synonymous with open-world gaming and controversial content. And over time, the controversy began to lose some of its power. As video games became more mainstream, as an entire generation grew up playing them without becoming criminals, the moral panic began to fade. By the 2010s, while GTA still faced criticism, the tone had shifted. The debates became less about banning the games and more about understanding them, critiquing them, and placing them in cultural context. Grand Theft Auto's cultural impact extends far beyond controversy. This series influenced game design profoundly. After GTA 3, open-world games became one of the dominant genres in gaming. Titles like Saints Row, Sleeping Dogs, Just Cause, Watch Dogs, and countless others owe their existence to the template Rockstar established. Even non-crime games like the Elder Scrolls and Fallout series, Red Dead Redemption, also by Rockstar, and The Witcher 3 borrowed design principles from GTA. Large, explorable worlds filled with activities, emergent gameplay, and player freedom. The series also demonstrated that games could be sophisticated narrative experiences. GTA 3, Vice City, and San Andreas showed that games could tell compelling stories with complex characters, that voice acting and cinematic presentation could elevate interactive entertainment. This paved the way for narrative-focused games across all genres. Developers realized that players would invest in stories, that worlds could be more than playgrounds. They could be stages for drama, comedy, tragedy. GTA's satirical approach to storytelling influenced game writing. The series proved that games could be funny, biting, subversive. They could critique the cultures they depicted. They could hold up a mirror to society and mock what they saw. This satirical edge, done well, added depth and intelligence to games that might otherwise have been dismissed as mindless violence. Rockstar demonstrated that mature content could mean more than just blood and profanity. It could mean mature themes, social commentary, and artistic ambition. The radio stations in GTA games became a signature feature that other open-world games tried to emulate. The idea that a game's world could have its own media, its own culture expressed through music and talk radio was revolutionary. It made the worlds feel lived in, authentic, layered. Players formed emotional connections to songs they heard while playing, associating certain tracks with specific moments or experiences in the game. The music became part of the narrative, part of the memory. Grand Theft Auto also demonstrated the commercial viability of mature, controversial content. Before GTA, many publishers were hesitant to release games with adult themes, fearing backlash and poor sales. GTA proved that there was a massive market for such games, that adults wanted entertainment tailored to them, not sanitized for younger audiences. This gave other developers confidence to pursue mature projects, expanding the range of content available in gaming. The franchise became part of the broader cultural conversation. GTA was referenced in films, TV shows, music. Rappers name-dropped it in lyrics. Comedians made jokes about it. It entered the lexicon. To say something was like GTA was to invoke a specific kind of chaotic, open-ended freedom. The phrase Grand Theft Auto itself became shorthand for a certain type of game, a genre unto itself. But perhaps most importantly, Grand Theft Auto forced society to reckon with video games as a legitimate medium. The controversies, for all their negativity, brought games into mainstream discussion. Parents, politicians, lawyers, journalists, all had to engage with video games as a cultural force. Courts ruled on their status as protected speech. Researchers studied their effects. Critics analyzed their content. And through this process, games gained recognition, not just as toys for children, but as a significant form of modern media. The debates surrounding Grand Theft Auto are far from over. Each new release brings renewed scrutiny. But the terms of the debate have evolved. The question is no longer whether games like GTA should exist. It is how we understand them, how we contextualize them, how we critique them thoughtfully rather than reactively. Grand Theft Auto, controversial as it is, has earned its place in the history of entertainment. It is a franchise that challenged boundaries, provoked discussion, and changed the gaming landscape forever. After the massive success of San Andreas, Rockstar took a lengthy hiatus from the main GTA series. They released several spin-off titles, including Liberty City Stories and Vice City Stories for the PlayStation Portable, but the next mainline entry would not arrive until April 2008, and when it did, it represented a significant departure from what had come before. Grand Theft Auto 4, developed by Rockstar North for the PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360, was built on an entirely new engine called Rage, Rockstar Advanced Game Engine, combined with the Euphoria physics system and the natural motion animation system. The technological leap was substantial. Characters moved with realistic weight and momentum. Physics governed everything from vehicle handling to how bodies reacted to impacts. The world was more detailed than anything Rockstar had created before. The setting was Liberty City once again, but this was not the Liberty City of GTA 3. This was a reimagined, expanded, more realistic version inspired by modern New York City. The city was divided into 4 boroughs: Broker, based on Brooklyn, Dukes, Queens, Bohan, the Bronx, and Algonquin, Manhattan. Alderney, based on New Jersey, served as an additional area across the river. Each borough had its own character, from the rundown streets of Bohan to the gleaming skyscrapers of Algonquin. Liberty City in GTA 4 felt more alive than any previous GTA city. The density of detail was extraordinary. Pedestrians walked with purpose, talking on phones, reading newspapers, reacting to the weather. Traffic behaved more realistically. Drivers made mistakes, got frustrated, honked horns. The city had a rhythm, a pulse. Weather effects from rain to fog changed the atmosphere. The time of day affected lighting and mood. At sunrise, the city glowed with golden light. At night, neon signs and streetlights cast long shadows. The world felt tangible, grounded in reality. The story of GTA 4 was darker and more serious than previous entries. The protagonist, Niko Bellic, was an immigrant from Eastern Europe, a veteran of a brutal civil war who came to America seeking a fresh start. He arrives in Liberty City at the invitation of his cousin Roman, who has promised a life of luxury and success. But Roman's letters were lies. He's in debt to loan sharks, running a failing taxi business, and living in a cramped apartment. Niko, disillusioned but loyal, stays to help Roman and to pursue his own agenda, finding the men who betrayed him during the war. Niko Bellic was a departure from previous GTA protagonists. He was not flamboyant like Tommy Vercetti or aspirational like CJ. He was weary, haunted, morally conflicted. Voiced by Michael Hollick, Niko spoke with a thick accent and carried the weight of his past visibly. He killed because he had to, because it was the only skill the war had left him with, not because he enjoyed it. This moral ambiguity was central to GTA 4's narrative. The game asked players to consider the cost of violence, the cycles of revenge, the emptiness of the American dream for those who arrive seeking it. The story took Niko through Liberty City's criminal underworld. He worked for various employers. Vlad, a loan shark sleeping with Roman's girlfriend. Mikhail Faustin, a violent, unstable Russian mobster. Dmitry Raskolov, Faustin's calculating partner. The McCreary family, an Irish-American crime family, and Playboy X and Dwayne, two conflicting figures in Niko's life representing different paths. The narrative explored themes of loyalty, betrayal, revenge, and the impossibility of escaping one's past. One of GTA 4's most significant innovations was its approach to choice. At several points in the story, Niko was forced to make decisions that affected the outcome. These were not simply cosmetic choices, they had consequences. In one mission, Niko had to choose between killing one of two characters. Each choice led to different story developments. Near the end of the game, Niko faced a major decision that determined which of two possible endings would occur. This branching narrative structure added weight to the player's actions and encouraged multiple playthroughs to see different outcomes. The game's tone was more grounded than previous entries. The satire was still present. Rockstar's radio station still mocked American culture, but it was subtler, less cartoonish. The humor was darker, more cynical. The story dealt with serious issues: immigration, identity, trauma, morality. Niko's conversations with other characters often touched on philosophy, regret, and the meaning of redemption. The writing was sharp, mature, and surprisingly thoughtful. Supporting characters were richly developed. Roman, Niko's cousin, was not just comic relief. He was a dreamer crushed by reality, yet still hopeful. Little Jacob, a Jamaican drug dealer who became Niko's friend, spoke in thick patois but offered wisdom and loyalty. Patrick McCreary, an Irish criminal, was reckless yet endearing. Brucey, a steroid-abusing alpha male parody, was hilarious but also strangely sympathetic. Each character felt like a person, not just a quest giver. The mission design in GTA 4 was more focused than San Andreas. There were fewer side activities and less RPG-style customization. Niko could not buy properties or businesses. He could not modify his appearance extensively. The game streamlined many of San Andreas' systems, focusing on the core experience: driving, shooting, and storytelling. Some players missed the breadth of San Andreas, but others appreciated the tighter focus. Driving physics were dramatically overhauled. Vehicles had weight and momentum. Turning at high speed required careful braking. Cars could roll and flip realistically. Crashes were spectacular, with vehicles crumpling and deforming. The new physics made driving feel more challenging but also more satisfying. Mastering the handling took time, but skilled players could pull off impressive maneuvers. The physics also applied to character movement. Nico stumbled when running downhill, caught himself when losing balance, and reacted dynamically to impacts. The shooting mechanics were also refined. GTA 4 introduced a cover system, allowing Nico to take shelter behind objects during gunfights. This made combat more tactical and less about simply absorbing damage. Aiming felt more precise, and weapons had distinct characteristics. The cover system was not perfect. It could be clunky at times, but it represented Rockstar's effort to modernize GTA's combat to match contemporary third-person shooters. One of GTA 4's most praised features was its multiplayer mode. For the first time, a main GTA title featured robust online multiplayer. Players could explore Liberty City together, participate in various game modes, from team deathmatch to races to cooperative missions. The multiplayer was chaotic and fun, allowing friends to cause mayhem together in ways the series had never permitted before. While it did not have the longevity or depth of what would come with GTA Online, it was a significant step forward and demonstrated Rockstar's commitment to expanding the series beyond single-player experiences. The game's presentation was stunning for its time. The graphics, powered by the Rage engine, were among the best of the generation. The lighting was particularly impressive, with realistic reflections, shadows, and atmospheric effects. The city felt dense and detailed. Interiors, from apartments to strip clubs to warehouses, were fully realized spaces. The draw distance allowed players to see across the entire city from high vantage points, something previous console GTAs struggled with. The soundtrack continued GTA's tradition of eclectic radio stations, though with a more contemporary focus. 18 radio stations featured music ranging from hip-hop to jazz, from punk to Latin. Notable artists included Bob Dylan, Elton John, the Black Keys, and David Bowie. The talk radio stations remained satirical, featuring absurd commercials and programming that mocked modern media. In-game, players could also enjoy television programs, another first for the series. Nico could sit in his apartment and watch fictional shows parodying reality TV, cartoons, and news programs. This added another layer of world building. Grand Theft Auto 4 was a critical darling. It received near-universal acclaim from reviewers who praised its storytelling, its technical achievements, its world design. Many outlets gave it perfect scores. It was called a masterpiece, a landmark in gaming, the best game of its generation. Commercially, it was a massive success, earning $310 million on its first day and over $500 million in its first week, setting records at the time. But player reception was more mixed than critical reception. Some players felt the game was too serious, too slow, too realistic. They missed the over-the-top chaos and variety of San Andreas, the removal of property ownership, the limited customization, the more constrained structure, all disappointed players who had expected GTA 4 to expand on San Andreas rather than streamline it. The driving physics, while realistic, divided players. Some found them frustrating, preferring the arcadey handling of earlier games. The game also faced technical issues at launch, particularly on PC. The PC version, released several months after consoles, was poorly optimized, suffering from performance problems even on high-end hardware. Rockstar eventually patched many of these issues, but the initial release left a sour taste for PC players. Despite these criticisms, GTA 4 sold over 25 million copies and cemented Rockstar's reputation as one of the premier developers in the industry. It demonstrated that GTA could evolve, could take risks, could pursue a more grounded, narrative-focused approach. It proved that the series was not limited to one style or tone, and it laid the groundwork, both technically and narratively, for what would become the most successful entertainment product of all time. 2 episodic expansions followed, The Lost and Damned in February 2009 and The Ballad of Gay Tony in October 2009. These DLCs told separate stories set in Liberty City during the same time period as the main game, offering different perspectives and tones. The Lost and Damned followed Johnny Klebitz, a member of a biker gang, in a gritty, dark story about loyalty and decline. The Ballad of Gay Tony starred Luis Lopez, a nightclub bodyguard, in a more flamboyant, action-packed adventure. Together, these expansions enriched the world of GTA 4 and demonstrated Rockstar's commitment to post-launch content. On September 17, 2013, Rockstar Games released Grand Theft Auto V for the PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360. Within 24 hours, the game earned $800 million in revenue. Within 3 days, it crossed $1 billion, becoming the fastest-selling entertainment product in history. These numbers were not just records for video games. They surpassed opening weekends of blockbuster films, album releases, and any other form of entertainment. Grand Theft Auto V was a cultural phenomenon of unprecedented scale. The development of GTA 5 had begun shortly after the release of GTA 4. Rockstar assembled a massive team, drawing from multiple studios across the globe. Rockstar North led development, but studios in San Diego, New England, Toronto, London, and elsewhere contributed. The budget was rumored to be between $200 million and $265 million, including marketing, making it one of the most expensive video games ever produced at the time. The ambition was clear from the start: create the biggest, most detailed, most ambitious open world ever built. The setting was the state of San Andreas, but reimagined from the ground up. Unlike the San Andreas of 2004, which featured 3 distinct cities, GTA 5 focused on a single city, Los Santos, a massive recreation of Los Angeles and surrounding Southern California. But this was not just a city. The map included the urban sprawl of Los Santos proper, the beaches and boardwalks of Vespucci, the wealthy hills of Vinewood, the gang-controlled neighborhoods of South Los Santos, and most importantly the vast countryside of Blaine County. Mountains, deserts, forests, small towns, military bases, the Alamo Sea, based on the Salton Sea, all were included. The map was enormous, larger than GTA 4's Liberty City, Red Dead Redemption's Frontier, and San Andreas' entire state combined. The level of detail was breathtaking. Los Santos felt like a real city, not just a game level. The streets were filled with pedestrians going about their lives. Joggers ran along the beach, tourists took photos at landmarks, homeless people panhandled. Each neighborhood had its own aesthetic, from the luxury of Rockford Hills to the decay of Strawberry. The countryside was equally impressive. Wildlife roamed the forests and deserts: deer, mountain lions, coyotes, even sharks in the ocean. The ocean itself was fully explorable, with underwater sections featuring coral reefs, shipwrecks, and hidden secrets. The weather system was dynamic and realistic. Fog rolled in over the coast. Rain fell, creating puddles and reducing visibility. Thunderstorms lit the sky with lightning. The time of day affected everything. Early morning bathed the city in soft light. Midday was bright and harsh. Sunset painted the sky in oranges and purples. Night transformed Los Santos into a sea of lights. The atmosphere was constantly shifting, making the world feel alive and unpredictable. For the first time in the series, GTA V featured 3 playable protagonists: Michael DeSanta, Franklin Clinton, and Trevor Phillips. This was a bold narrative experiment. Players could switch between the 3 characters at almost any time outside of missions, each character existing in the world even when not being controlled. Switch to Michael, and he might be arguing with his family. Switch to Franklin, and he might be walking his dog. Switch to Trevor, and he might be waking up in a strange location with no memory of how he got there. This created a sense that the characters had lives beyond the player's control, that there was people existing in the world rather than empty avatars. Michael DeSanta was a retired bank robber living in witness protection in Los Santos. Once a successful criminal, he had made a deal with the authorities and now lived a life of suburban luxury, but also emptiness. His marriage was failing. His children resented him. He was depressed, seeing a therapist and yearning for the excitement of his criminal past. Michael was voiced by Ned Luke, who brought a weary, cynical energy to the character. Michael was intelligent, cultured, and deeply flawed. He was a man who had achieved the American dream and found it hollow. Franklin Clinton was a young repo man from South Los Santos, trying to escape the gang life that had claimed so many of his friends. He was ambitious, smart, and frustrated by the limited opportunities available to him. Franklin wanted more than the dead-end jobs and petty crime that defined his neighborhood. He saw Michael as a mentor, a way into the big leagues of crime. Franklin was voiced by Sean Fontino, who gave the character a grounded, relatable quality. Franklin was the player's surrogate, the character through whose eyes we entered the story. Trevor Phillips was a psychopathic criminal living in the desert town of Sandy Shores. He was Michael's former partner, believed to be dead after a botched robbery years earlier. But Trevor had survived and built a small criminal empire dealing drugs and running guns. He was violent, unpredictable, and utterly unhinged. Yet he was also fiercely loyal to those he considered friends. Trevor was voiced by Stephen Ogg in a performance that was both terrifying and darkly comedic. Trevor embodied chaos, the id to Michael's ego. He was the character who did the things players might want to do, but most characters would not. He was a monster, but a compelling one. The dynamic between the 3 characters was the heart of GTA V's story. When Franklin met Michael, he became drawn into the older man's world. When Michael's cover was blown, he was forced back into crime. And when Trevor discovered that Michael was alive, he came to Los Santos seeking answers and revenge. The 3 formed an uneasy partnership, planning and executing a series of increasingly elaborate heists. Their interactions were filled with tension, humour, and genuine emotion. They argued, they supported each other, they betrayed each other. The writing was sharp, the performances were excellent, and the relationships felt real. The ability to switch between characters was not just a narrative gimmick, it was integrated into gameplay. During many missions, players could switch between characters to experience different perspectives, or to control different aspects of a plan. In a heist, one character might pilot a helicopter, while another provided sniper support and a third drove the getaway vehicle. Players could switch between these roles seamlessly, creating a sense of coordination and teamwork. This mechanic made missions feel more dynamic and cinematic than ever before. Heists were the centerpiece of GTA V's mission design. Unlike previous games where major jobs were scripted and linear, heists in GTA 5 required planning. Players chose their approach, loud and aggressive or quiet and stealthy. They selected crew members balancing skill against cost. Better crew members demanded a larger cut of the take but performed more reliably. Players acquired the necessary equipment, vehicles, and disguises. Then they executed the plan, with the game adapting to successes and failures. The heists felt like major events, elaborate set pieces that rewarded careful preparation and skillful execution. The first major heist, robbing a jewelry store, served as a tutorial for the system. Later heists grew in scope, robbing an armored car convoy, breaking into a government facility, stealing a military superweapon, and finally the big score, robbing the Union Depository, Los Santos' equivalent of Fort Knox. These missions were thrilling, tense, and immensely satisfying. They were the moments players looked forward to, the rewards for hours of build-up. Beyond the main story, GTA 5 was packed with content. Each character had unique side activities and missions. Michael could do yoga, play tennis, or go to therapy sessions that were darkly hilarious and surprisingly introspective. Franklin could participate in street races, repo cars, or help strangers in need. Trevor could engage in rampages, run his drug business, or complete bounty hunter missions. Additionally, all three could take on Strangers and Freaks missions, the series' tradition of bizarre side quests involving eccentric characters. The variety of activities was staggering. Players could play golf on a full 18-hole course. They could play tennis with realistic mechanics. They could scuba dive and explore the ocean floor. They could hunt animals and sell pelts. They could skydive, base jump, and participate in triathlons. They could invest in the stock market, manipulating prices through in-game actions and missions. They could buy properties that generated income. They could customize vehicles at mod shops. They could collect hidden items, from spaceship parts to nuclear waste. The world was dense with things to do, places to explore, secrets to find. The game's satire was sharper than ever. Every aspect of modern American culture was skewered. Celebrity worship, social media, reality TV, corporate greed, political corruption, gun culture, consumerism, the entertainment industry, self-help gurus, vapid influencers. The radio stations featured hilarious commercials and talk shows. The in-game internet allowed players to browse parody websites mocking everything from social networks to dating sites to news outlets. The billboards, TV shows, and ambient dialogue all contributed to a relentless satire of contemporary life. Rockstar held nothing sacred. Everyone and everything was a target. The game looked stunning. The graphics were a massive leap forward, pushing the PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360 to their absolute limits. Character models were detailed with realistic facial animations and expressions. The city was rendered with extraordinary fidelity. Lighting, shadows, textures, all were cutting edge for the hardware. When the game was later released on PlayStation 4, Xbox One, and PC, the visual improvements were even more dramatic. Higher resolution, better textures, increased draw distance, more traffic and pedestrians, enhanced weather effects. The PC version, in particular, became the definitive way to experience GTA 5, supporting 4K resolution, 60 FPS, and extensive graphics options. The soundtrack was another triumph. GTA 5 featured 17 radio stations with over 240 licensed tracks. The music spanned decades and genres: classic rock, hip-hop, electronic, punk, reggae, country, pop. Notable artists included Queen, Elton John, Kendrick Lamar, Astelpi Rocky, Flying Lotus, and WAVs. Each station was hosted by DJs who provided context and personality. The music was not just background noise, it was carefully curated to enhance the game's atmosphere and themes. Voice acting was superb across the board. Beyond the main cast, the supporting characters were voiced by a mix of professional actors and celebrity guests. Danny Tamborelli, Jay Clates, and Gerald Johnson voiced key supporting roles. Stand-up comedians and actors provided performances for radio hosts and background characters. The writing and performances combined to create a world that felt populated by real people, not just NPCs. GTA 5's story was more focused than San Andreas, but more expansive than GTA 4. It lasted approximately 30 hours for the main missions, but players could easily spend 100+ hours exploring everything the game offered. The ending, like GTA 4, offered player choice. In the final mission, Franklin was forced to make a decision: kill Trevor, kill Michael, or defy orders and save both by taking on their enemies together. The third option, often referred to as the true ending, saw the three protagonists teaming up for one final job, eliminating everyone who threatened them and achieving a form of closure. It was a satisfying conclusion that rewarded players who had invested in all three characters. Critically, GTA 5 was acclaimed. It received perfect or near-perfect scores from most major outlets. Reviewers praised its ambition, its world, its storytelling, its technical achievement. It won numerous Game of the Year awards. Many critics called it the best game of the generation, a masterpiece of open-world design. It was compared favourably not just to previous GTA games but to any open-world game ever made. The consensus was clear. Rockstar had created something extraordinary. Commercially, the success was unprecedented. Within its first week, GTA 5 earned over $1 billion. By 2018, it had sold over 100 million copies, becoming one of the best-selling video games of all time. As of 2024, sales have exceeded 200 million copies across all platforms. The game has been released on 3 generations of consoles: PS3 to Xbox 360, PS4 to Xbox One, and PS5 to Xbox Series XS. Each new release brought enhancements and attracted new players. The PC version, released in April 2015, became enormously popular, in part because of its support for mods, which allowed players to create custom content ranging from visual enhancements to entirely new game modes. But GTA 5's story does not end with its single-player campaign. 2 weeks after launch, Rockstar released Grand Theft Auto Online, a multiplayer component that would grow into something far larger than anyone anticipated. GTA Online would become a live service, a constantly evolving experience that would sustain the game for over a decade. It would generate billions of dollars in revenue, and it would change how Rockstar and much of the industry thought about game development and monetization. Grand Theft Auto Online launched on October 1st, 2013, 2 weeks after GTA 5's release. The initial launch was troubled. Servers crashed under the weight of millions of players trying to connect simultaneously. Progress was lost. Missions failed to load. Rockstar scrambled to fix the issues, and within a few weeks the experience stabilized. Once it did, players discovered something remarkable: a persistent online world where they could create their own criminal character and live out their fantasies in Los Santos with friends. GTA Online began modestly. Players created a custom character, completed a brief tutorial, and were let loose in Los Santos. They could participate in various activities: races, death matches, team-based modes, cooperative missions. They earned money and reputation points, which unlocked new weapons, vehicles, and properties. The progression was slow, deliberately so, encouraging players to invest time grinding missions and activities. The core appeal was simple: GTA V's incredible world, but shared with other players. The chaos, the freedom, the fun of causing mayhem, all amplified by the presence of other human players. But what started as a relatively straightforward multiplayer mode would, over the next decade, evolve into something far more ambitious and far more controversial. Rockstar began releasing regular updates, free content drops that added new missions, vehicles, weapons, and features. These updates were funded by microtransactions, shark cards, purchasable with real money that gave players in-game currency. This business model would prove phenomenally successful and deeply divisive. The first major update, the Beach Bum Pack in November 2013, added new vehicles, weapons, and clothing. It was followed by the Business Update in March 2014, which introduced new vehicles and mission content. But the real game changer was the Heists Update in March 2015. Players had been promised heists since GTA Online's launch, and after over a year of delays, they finally arrived. Heists were complex, multi-part missions requiring teams of up to 4 players to coordinate. They were difficult, required communication and planning, and offered substantial payouts. The Heists update transformed GTA Online from a collection of activities into a cohesive experience with long-term goals. Subsequent updates continued to expand the game. Free mode events in September 2015 added spontaneous challenges that occurred in the open world, encouraging players to compete in various activities. Executives and other criminals in December 2015 allowed players to become VIPs and hire bodyguards, adding a new layer of role-playing. Further, Be a Criminal Enterprise. In June 2016, introduced businesses that players could purchase and manage: offices, warehouses, biker clubhouses, drug labs, bunkers, nightclubs, and more. Each business generated passive income but required players to complete missions to acquire stock and make deliveries. These business updates became the core of GTA Online's economy. Players invested millions of in-game dollars to purchase properties and upgrades, then completed missions to generate profit. The loop was addictive but also time-consuming and expensive. Many of the most desirable vehicles and items cost millions, far more than could be easily earned through missions alone. This is where shark cards came in. Players could purchase these with real money, instantly receiving large sums of in-game cash. A Megalodon shark card, for example, cost $100 and provided $8 million in-game dollars. The monetization strategy was controversial. Critics argued that Rockstar had designed GTA Online's economy to encourage, even pressure, players into buying shark cards. Prices for new content inflated with each update. Grinding missions for money was tedious and time-consuming. The game, some argued, had become a pay-to-win experience where those willing to spend real money had significant advantages. Rockstar defended the model, pointing out that all content updates were free and that shark cards were optional. Players could earn everything through gameplay, it just required significant time investment. The debate highlighted a shift in Rockstar's priorities. For over a decade, the company had been known for crafting rich single-player experiences. GTA Online, with its focus on multiplayer and microtransactions, seemed to represent a departure. Fans began to worry that Rockstar was more interested in the ongoing revenue from GTA Online than in creating new single-player content. These concerns intensified when no single-player DLC was released for GTA 5, despite the expansions that had followed GTA 4. Rockstar remained silent on the issue for years, but the message seemed clear. GTA Online was the priority. Yet despite the controversy, GTA Online continued to grow. Each update brought new players and re-engaged lapsed ones. The Doomsday Heist in December 2017 introduced a sci-fi storyline involving orbital cannons, jetpacks, and an apocalyptic threat. After Hours in July 2018 let players run nightclubs, featuring real-world DJs like Solomon and Tale of Us. The Diamond Casino and Resort in July 2019 opened a fully functional casino with gambling, poker, roulette, and slot machines, though gambling with real money was prohibited in many regions due to regulations. The Diamond Casino Heist in December 2019 was another major update, providing a new heist with multiple approaches and substantial replay value. The Cayo Perico Heist in December 2020 introduced an entirely new island location outside Los Santos, offering a solo-friendly heist that could be completed without relying on other players. This was a significant shift as most heists required teams. The Cayo Perico Heist became one of the most popular ways to earn money in GTA Online, and its success demonstrated that Rockstar was still capable of delivering compelling content years after the game's initial release. Subsequent updates continued to add content. Los Santos Tuners in July 2021 focused on car culture and street racing. The contract in December 2021 brought back Franklin Clinton from the single-player story, teaming him with rapper Dr. Dre in a narrative-driven update. The Criminal Enterprises in July 2022 overhauled existing businesses and improved quality-of-life features. Each update kept GTA Online feeling fresh, relevant, and profitable. The longevity of GTA Online is remarkable. Over a decade after launch, the game still has millions of active players. It continues to generate hundreds of millions of dollars in revenue annually for Rockstar and Take-Two Interactive. It has become one of the most successful live service games ever created, comparable to titles like Fortnite and World of Warcraft in terms of cultural impact and financial success. But the success of GTA Online has had consequences. The long gap between GTA 5 and the next mainline entry, GTA 6, has been attributed in part to Rockstar's focus on supporting GTA Online. The company has become more risk-averse, reportedly toning down some of the more provocative satire in recent updates to avoid controversy that might hurt the brand. Former developers have spoken about the challenges of sustaining a live service game, the pressure to keep content flowing, and the shift in company culture. GTA Online also changed player expectations. A generation of players experienced GTA primarily as an online multiplayer game, not a single-player story. For them, GTA was about playing with friends, building wealth, showing off expensive vehicles, and participating in a living, evolving world. This was a different experience from the narrative-driven campaigns of previous entries, and while many longtime fans longed for a return to the focused, story-rich experiences of the past, there was no denying that GTA Online had tapped into something powerful: the desire for a persistent shared world where players could write their own stories. The community that formed around GTA Online was massive and diverse. Content creators on YouTube and Twitch built careers streaming GTA Online, showcasing new vehicles, completing challenges, or simply causing chaos. Role-play servers, particularly on PC, became hugely popular, with players creating elaborate characters and scenarios, essentially using GTA Online as a platform for collaborative storytelling. These communities demonstrated that GTA Online was more than just a game. It was a platform, a social space, a canvas for creativity. Yet the game also had darker sides. Cheaters and hackers plagued the PC version, exploiting the game for unfair advantages or griefing other players. Rockstar's anti-cheat measures were inconsistent. and many players felt the company prioritized profits over player experience. The community could be toxic, with harassment and hostile behavior common in public lobbies. The game's open-ended nature, combined with anonymity, sometimes brought out the worst in people. Despite these issues, GTA Online remains a phenomenon. It has sustained GTA 5 far beyond what any single-player game could achieve. It has proven that with the right approach, a multiplayer component can become the primary draw, even in a series known for single-player storytelling, and it has set expectations, for better or worse, for what GTA 6 might include. Rockstar has confirmed that GTA 6 will feature an online component from day one, building on the lessons learned from GTA Online. Whether this excites or concerns fans depends on their perspective. GTA Online's story is still being written. New updates continue to arrive. The player base remains strong, and as long as players keep logging in, keep buying shark cards, and keep engaging with the content, Rockstar will keep supporting it. In many ways, GTA Online has become the game that never ends, a perpetual world of crime, chaos, and opportunity that has redefined what a GTA game can be. What makes a Grand Theft Auto city feel alive? What separates these virtual spaces from empty sandboxes or mere collections of missions and activities? The answer lies in Rockstar's design philosophy, a philosophy refined over decades and countless iterations. Understanding this philosophy reveals why GTA's open worlds are considered among the best in gaming. At the core of Rockstar's approach is simulation. GTA cities are not static backgrounds. They are simulations of urban life, simplified but effective. Every element in the world follows rules, has behaviors, and responds to player actions. Pedestrians walk with purpose, following routines. They go to work, shop, socialize. They react to weather, to time of day, to events around them. If it rains, some pedestrians open umbrellas or run for cover. If shots are fired, they panic and flee. If the player drives recklessly, they shout angrily and sometimes fight back. This reactivity creates a sense of life. The world does not simply exist for the player. It exists independently, with the player as one element within it. NPCs have their own concerns, their own lives. They are not waiting for the player to interact with them. They are going about their business. This philosophy extends to traffic. Drivers follow traffic laws mostly. They signal turns, stop at lights, navigate around obstacles. When frustrated, they honk, shout, or attempt risky maneuvers. Occasionally, accidents occur naturally without player intervention. The simulation creates emergent moments, unexpected interactions that were not scripted but arise from systems interacting. Density is another key principle. Rockstar cities are packed with detail. Every street has storefronts, signs, graffiti, trash, parked cars, pedestrians. There is no empty space, no barren corridors between points of interest. Density creates visual richness and gives players constant stimulation. Everywhere they look, there is something to see, something happening. This density also serves gameplay. The crowded streets provide cover during chases, obstacles during pursuits, and opportunities for chaos. The city is not just a space to traverse, it is a stage for action, designed to support dynamic gameplay. Atmosphere is created through careful art direction and environmental storytelling. Each GTA city has a distinct identity, conveyed through architecture, color palette, lighting, and ambient details. Vice City's neon-soaked Art Deco aesthetic immediately communicated 1980s Miami excess. San Andreas's diverse environments, from urban decay to rural tranquility, captured the breadth of California. GTA 4's Liberty City was grey, industrial, oppressive, reflecting Nico's bleak worldview. GTA 5's Los Santos was vibrant, sun-drenched, superficial, mirroring the themes of celebrity and emptiness. Environmental storytelling allows players to read the world without explicit exposition. A rundown neighborhood with boarded-up buildings, gang graffiti, and wary residents tells a story of economic decline and social struggle. A wealthy area with manicured lawns, luxury cars, and indifferent pedestrians tells a story of privilege and detachment. Players absorb these narratives passively as they explore, building a mental model of the world and its cultures. Audio design is equally crucial. The soundscape of a GTA city includes layers of ambient noise, traffic, sirens, conversations, construction, music bleeding from cars and buildings, weather effects. These audio cues orient players, provide feedback, and enhance immersion. The sound of a helicopter overhead might signal police pursuit. The chatter of pedestrians might include humorous dialogue or world-building information. The rumble of a train or the hum of traffic creates a sonic backdrop that makes the city feel lived in. Radio stations are perhaps Rockstar's most iconic audio element. Each station is meticulously curated, featuring licensed music, original compositions, and satirical talk shows. The stations serve multiple purposes. They provide entertainment, preventing the world from feeling silent or repetitive. They build atmosphere, with music choices reflecting the setting's time and place. They deliver satire, with commercials and talk shows mocking contemporary culture. And they create player memories, associating specific songs with specific moments or experiences. The radio stations also demonstrate Rockstar's commitment to authenticity and detail. Licensing hundreds of songs is expensive and legally complex, but Rockstar invests in it because music is integral to the GTA experience. The stations have fictional DJs with personalities and backstories. The playlists are diverse, catering to different tastes and moods. The stations change as players move through different areas, reflecting the cultural geography of the city. This level of detail is not necessary for basic functionality, but it deepens immersion and distinguishes GTA from competitors. Mission design in GTA balances structure with freedom. Missions provide narrative momentum and introduce gameplay variety, but they respect player agency. Most missions offer multiple approaches, even if not explicitly stated. Players can choose their route, their tactics, their equipment. They can be aggressive or cautious, loud or stealthy. Failure is allowed, even expected. Missions can be retried, and failure itself is often entertaining, leading to chaotic chases or unexpected outcomes. Rockstar learned over time to structure missions more carefully. Early GTA games sometimes featured frustrating design, missions with long drives before the action, instant fail conditions, vague objectives. GTA 4 and V refined these elements. Checkpoints prevented repetition. Objectives were clearer. Missions were paced to maintain engagement. But Rockstar never fully removed challenge or consequence. Missions could still be difficult, requiring skill and persistence. This balance between accessibility and challenge kept missions satisfying without becoming frustrating. The open world itself serves as the ultimate mission. Players can ignore structured content and create their own objectives. They can test the limits of the simulation, see how systems respond to different inputs. They can cause traffic jams, start gang wars, lead police on elaborate chases. This emergent gameplay is central to GTA's appeal. The world is a toy box, and players are encouraged to experiment, to break rules, to see what happens. Rockstar also understands the importance of pacing and variety. GTA Games mix high-intensity action missions with quieter, character-driven moments. They alternate between different gameplay styles: driving, shooting, stealth, puzzle-solving. This variety prevents monotony and keeps players engaged over dozens of hours. The worlds also offer downtime. Players can simply exist in the space, driving around, listening to music, observing the city. This downtime is not wasted time. It allows players to absorb the atmosphere, to appreciate the world as a place rather than just a game level. Interactivity is another design pillar. Almost everything in a GTA world can be interacted with. Cars can be stolen. Pedestrians can be harmed. Objects can be destroyed. Businesses can be entered. This interactivity reinforces the sense of presence. The world is not a facade of untouchable assets. It is a tangible space where actions have effects. Shooting a car tire causes it to deflate. Breaking a fire hydrant releases a spray of water. Starting a fire attracts emergency services. These details, individually small, collectively create a world that feels real. Progression systems give players long-term goals. In San Andreas, CJ's skills improved with practice. In GTA 5 and online, players unlocked vehicles, weapons, properties, and customization options. Progression provides structure and motivation, encouraging players to engage with various activities. It also enhances role-playing. Players can shape their character's abilities and appearance, creating a sense of ownership and investment. Secrets and hidden content reward exploration. GTA worlds are filled with Easter eggs, references, jokes, and mysteries. Finding these secrets offers intrinsic satisfaction, and the community surrounding GTA loves to discover and share hidden details. From ghost sightings to UFOs, from cryptic messages to elaborate puzzles, these secrets give the worlds depth and encourage players to look closely, to notice details that could easily be missed. Rockstar's world building extends beyond the digital space. In-game websites, fictional brands, advertising campaigns, and lore scattered throughout the environment create a cohesive fictional universe. Players can browse the in-game internet, reading parody news sites, shopping on fake retail platforms, or exploring absurd conspiracy theories. These details are not necessary for gameplay, but they make the world feel complete, as if it exists beyond what the player directly experiences. The cities in GTA games are also designed with gameplay readability in mind. Despite their density and detail, they remain navigable. Landmarks provide visual reference points. Street layouts follow logical patterns. The map interface is clear and functional. Rockstar balances realism with usability, ensuring that players can find their way without excessive frustration. The cities feel large and complex, but never maze-like or confusing. Physics systems add unpredictability and fun. Vehicles handle with weight and momentum. Objects break and deform realistically. Ragdoll physics turn falls and crashes into slapstick comedy. These systems make the world feel dynamic rather than static. No two car chases play out exactly the same way because physics introduces variables. A slight difference in speed or angle produces different outcomes, keeping gameplay fresh even after repeated playthroughs. Rockstar's open-world philosophy can be summarized as simulation, density, atmosphere, and player freedom. They build worlds that feel alive through systems and details. They fill those worlds with content and secrets. They respect player agency, allowing experimentation and choice. And they craft narratives that unfold within these worlds, giving players reasons to explore while never forcing them down a single path. This philosophy, refined over 2 decades, has made Grand Theft Auto synonymous with open-world excellence. other developers have learned from Rockstar's approach. Many open-world games now feature similar elements: reactive NPCs, dense environments, radio stations, emergent gameplay. But few have matched the holistic vision and execution that defines GTA. Rockstar's worlds are not just large, they are coherent, layered, and alive. They are places players want to inhabit, not just levels to complete. This distinction is why GTA remains the gold standard for open-world design. Grand Theft Auto's legacy extends far beyond its own sales figures and critical acclaim. The franchise has fundamentally shaped the video game industry, influencing design philosophies, business models, and cultural perceptions of gaming. Understanding this legacy requires examining both the game's direct impact and their broader ripple effect across the medium. The most obvious legacy is the popularization of open-world design. Before GTA 3, open-world games existed but were relatively niche. Titles like the Legend of Zelda series offered exploration, and games like Elite provided vast spaces, but few combined freedom, narrative, and detailed environments the way GTA 3 did. After its success, open-world games exploded in popularity. Developers across the industry began creating expansive, explorable spaces filled with activities and missions. The GTA formula became a template. Games like Saints Row, Sleeping Dogs, Mafia, and countless others borrowed GTA's structure: an urban setting, a criminal protagonist, missions delivered by contacts, side activities, vehicular gameplay, and player freedom. Some of these games were obvious clones, while others used the template as a foundation for their own innovations. Saints Row, for example, leaned into absurdity and humour, distinguishing itself from GTA's more grounded approach. Sleeping Dogs incorporated martial arts combat inspired by Hong Kong action cinema. Each borrowed from GTA while trying to carve its own identity, but GTA's influence extended beyond crime games. The Assassin's Creed series applied open-world principles to historical settings. The Batman Arkham series created open-world superhero experiences. Far Cry brought the formula to exotic locales. The Witcher 3 demonstrated that open-world design could support deep RPG mechanics and branching narratives. Red Dead Redemption, also developed by Rockstar, translated the GTA formula to the American frontier with stunning results. Even non-action games like No Man's Sky and Minecraft owe conceptual debts to the idea of player-driven exploration and freedom. The franchise also demonstrated that games could be massive commercial successes while being critically acclaimed. Before GTA, blockbuster games were often viewed with suspicion by critics who assumed commercial appeal meant creative compromise. GTA proved that ambitious, well-crafted games could achieve both critical and commercial success. This gave publishers confidence to invest in large-scale productions, leading to the modern era of AAA game development with its huge budgets and expansive scope. GTA's narrative approach influenced game storytelling. The series showed that games could feature morally complex characters, mature themes, and cinematic presentation without sacrificing gameplay. The use of professional voice actors, motion capture, and scripted cinematics became industry standard, in part because GTA demonstrated their effectiveness. Games increasingly aspired to be interactive cinema, blending gameplay and narrative in ways that previous generations had rarely attempted. The franchise's satirical tone also left a mark. Many games now incorporate humor and social commentary, using their worlds to critique contemporary culture. While few match Rockstar's sharpness, the attempt itself reflects GTA's influence. Games are increasingly seen as valid platforms for satire and criticism, capable of making statements about society just as films, television, and literature do. GTA's controversies forced the industry to mature institutionally. The debates around violence, content ratings, and artistic freedom led to more robust self-regulation and clearer standards. The ESRB rating system, while imperfect, became more prominent and detailed. Publishers and developers became more aware of content sensitivities and potential legal challenges. This did not mean sanitizing games, but rather understanding the landscape in which they operated. The success of GTA Online influenced the industry's business models. The live service approach, where games receive ongoing content updates funded by microtransactions, became increasingly common. Games like Destiny, The Division, and Fortnite adopted similar models, building persistent online worlds that evolve over time. While this shift has been controversial, it is now a dominant force in gaming, and GTA Online was a pioneering example of its potential profitability. Rockstar's development approach, while often criticized for its intensity and demands on workers, set a precedent for large-scale game production. The company demonstrated that with sufficient time, budget, and talent, games could achieve unprecedented levels of polish and ambition. This raised player expectations but also increased pressure on developers. The phrase "rockstar quality" became shorthand for the highest tier of production values, a standard that many studios strive for but few achieve. GTA's cultural footprint is immense. The series is referenced in music, films, television, and popular discourse. It has been analysed in academic papers, discussed in courtrooms, and featured in museums. The franchise transcended gaming to become a cultural icon, recognised even by those who have never played the games. This mainstream recognition elevated gaming's status as a medium, proving that video games could achieve cultural relevance comparable to other entertainment forms. The series also sparked important conversations about representation, ethics, and the role of interactive media in society. Critics and scholars debate what GTA's violence means, whether its satire is effective, and how its portrayal of marginalized groups impacts culture. These debates are valuable, pushing the medium to be more thoughtful and self-aware. Even when GTA is criticized, the criticism often acknowledges the game's significance and influence. Looking toward the future, Grand Theft Auto's influence remains evident. GTA 6, announced with a trailer in December 2023 and set for release in 2025, is one of the most anticipated games in history. The trailer alone broke records for viewership, demonstrating the franchise's enduring appeal. Early details suggest the game will feature a female protagonist for the first time in the main series, set in a fictional version of Florida and built on technology that pushes the boundaries of what current hardware can achieve. The expectations for GTA 6 are immense, perhaps impossibly so. Players anticipate a world even larger and more detailed than GTA 5, a story even more compelling, innovations that redefine open-world gaming yet again. Whether Rockstar can meet these expectations remains to be seen, but the fact that they are expected to is itself a testament to the legacy they have built. Grand Theft Auto changed gaming. It proved that games could be vast, detailed, and mature. It showed that controversy could coexist with critical acclaim and commercial success. It demonstrated that worlds could feel alive, that players craved freedom, and that interactive entertainment could rival any other medium in ambition and impact. Every open-world game released today walks a path that GTA helped carve. Every debate about game content echoes arguments first ignited by this franchise. Grand Theft Auto is not just a series of games, It is a landmark in the history of interactive entertainment. And so we reach the end of our journey through the history of Grand Theft Auto. From a small studio in Scotland to one of the most successful and controversial franchises in entertainment history. From simple top-down chaos to vast living cities that push technology to its limits. This has been a story of innovation and ambition, of pushing boundaries and weathering storms of criticism. It has been a story of how games grew up, for better and worse, and how one series dared to be different. Grand Theft Auto is not a simple story of heroes and villains. It is complex, messy, contradictory. The games have been praised as masterpieces and condemned as corrupting influences. They have been celebrated for their freedom and criticized for their violence. They have made billions of dollars while sparking debates about art, ethics, and responsibility. They are works of satire that some see as brilliant commentary and others see as cynical exploitation. They are technical marvels that inspired an industry and labor practices that have been questioned and criticized. But through all the controversy, all the debate, all the evolution, one thing remains clear. Grand Theft Auto matters. It matters to the millions who have played it, who have spent countless hours exploring its cities, completing its missions, causing chaos with friends. It matters to the developers who have learned from its design, borrowed its ideas, and tried to capture its magic in their own works. It matters to the critics and scholars who study it, debate it, and try to understand what it says about our culture and our medium. And it matters to gaming history, standing as a milestone, a turning point, a moment when everything changed. As you drift off to sleep tonight, perhaps you will dream of those neon-lit streets, those sun-soaked highways, those sprawling cities that feel so alive. Perhaps you will remember a mission that made you laugh, or a moment of chaos that surprised you, or a character whose story stayed with you long after the credits rolled. Perhaps you will think about what these games mean, what they say, what they reveal about the world we live in and the worlds we choose to inhabit. The story of Grand Theft Auto is not finished. GTA 6 looms on the horizon, promising new worlds to explore, new stories to experience, new controversies to ignite. The series will continue to evolve, to surprise, to provoke, and we, the players, the critics, the observers, will continue to engage with it, to debate it, to find meaning in it. But for now, let it all drift away. Let the cities fade into darkness. Let the sirens and the radio stations and the sounds of traffic become distant echoes. You have travelled through decades of gaming history, through countless virtual miles, through the rise and evolution of one of the most important franchises ever created. You have seen where it began and where it stands now. You have understood its impact, its controversy, its legacy. Rest now. Let your mind settle. Let your breathing slow. The streets of Liberty City, Vice City, San Andreas, and Los Santos will be there tomorrow, waiting for anyone who wants to explore them. The stories will continue to be told. The worlds will continue to live. But tonight, you can simply rest, knowing that you have witnessed something remarkable. A journey through the history of Grand Theft Auto, a franchise that dared to be different, and in doing so, changed everything. If you enjoyed this exploration of gaming history, I invite you to like and subscribe or share your thoughts in the comments. Tell me about your favourite GTA moment, your first experience with the series, or what you hope to see in GTA 6. It helps others find their way here too, one sleepy soul at a time. But for now, close your eyes, let the world fade. Let sleep take you gently, peacefully, into the quiet dark. The cities will still be there when you wake. The stories will still be waiting. But tonight, you can simply rest. Good night.